Ladies and gentlemen, please give a Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame welcome to one of my favorite players, Wally Szczerbiak. Thank you, kind sir. No worries, man. Here, take a seat.
Yes.
Wally, welcome to Springfield.
Oh, it's great to be here. It's my first time. I got to tour the museum, and it's just spectacular. It brings back such great memories. A lot of guys I played against, and you know, the game of basketball has been really, really good to me, and it's good to be back here and feel that love.
I love hearing that. You and I were talking a little bit about your tour around, and your hoop story obviously predates, well, actually it goes over across the ocean and
Yes.
and goes to your very early roots. Your father, a professional, played in Spain for Real Madrid, won 3 titles. And you got to grow up with professional basketball, but in a very unique way. Some guys in your situation grew up with NBA dads. You grew up with a European player as a dad. How do you think that shaped you? How do you think that it might have been different from guys like Kobe, who grew up with NBA dads?
Well, Kobe also grew up with a dad over in Italy who
true.
played, and my dad, I think, played against him a little bit back in those days. But it was tremendous. I was born in Spain. I was born in Madrid while my dad was playing over there. My dad played for GW in college, had a great career. Then he went on to play in the ABA for the Pittsburgh Condors, and he was debating whether or not to give the NBA a shot. He got offered a contract for the Buffalo Braves, the old LA Clippers, but he took a 5-year guaranteed deal to go overseas. So he's going to take his game overseas. He became a legend over there, won 3 European titles. You know, I was the son of a legend as a little kid. I don't remember much because he retired right around when I was about 5, 6 years old. But I remember, you know, running around those gyms and watching my dad play and him picking me up and, you know, introducing me to the game of basketball. And, you know, I owe him the world. He taught me everything I knew about the game. Once he retired, came back to Long Island, that's where he settled. He taught me the game. He used to play in various workouts, pickup games, runs, and I used to be that little kid running out there during halftime and during timeouts and shooting threes and working on his jumper. So he was my basketball mentor. He taught me a lot, taught me everything, and you know, this great game has really given me a lot.
It's interesting, you told me a story off mic about your dad's coach.
Yes.
And while this might be your first trip to Springfield, your
Yeah.
family has been to Springfield many times. Would you care to share that?
Yeah, I was going around the shrine upstairs, and I was looking at different names, and you know, I happened to catch Pedro Ferrandis, which was my dad's coach back in the days at Real Madrid, and I was like, oh wow, there's my dad's coach. And my dad, you know, always used to tell stories about what a great coach he was. He loved to play up tempo, because back when my dad played, it was good to blow teams out. Margin of victory was very important. So he played very fast, kind of like the NBA teams are playing now, trying to score a lot of points, trying to shoot quick, trying to really get more possessions into the game. That's how he coached. That's how my dad loved to play. And my dad actually translated Pedro Ferrandis' induction speech here at the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2007. He's been back one other time. I think it was the year David Stern got inducted. So he loves coming up here, loves coming back, and you know, I'm enjoying it too. I'm having a great time.
I love hearing that. Your recruitment story, you and I are the same vintage, and so we remember a time, kids, trust me, before social media, and it was a very dark time. Phones were attached to walls. It was weird. And so your recruitment story is one that I remember following closely because it felt like sort of you were the elevation of a public school kid. You know, you were Cold Spring Harbor on Long Island. There was very little fanfare around your recruitment, and there was something about Coach Herb Sendek at Miami of Ohio that caused you to make a phone call against, the legend goes, against your father's wishes. He did not want you to commit to Miami of Ohio, and you were like, no, this is where I'm going. What was it about Coach Sendek that made you think that that was the right place?
Well, that's good info. I mean, you're bringing back stuff in the back of my mind that I kind of semi-forgot. So that brings back good memories. I fell in love with the place. I really did.
Yeah.
They were the school that wanted me the most. They were sending me letters every day. They had a phenomenal staff. Thad Mata, Sean Miller, Jim Christian, who's coaching up at Boston College now. And the guys were just really, really wanted me. And that made me feel really welcome. And I wanted to play in a Pitino-like system, and Herb Senick was a Pitino disciple. So I thought it was the perfect fit with the academics that it offered, with the level of play that it offered. They had made the NCAA tournament the year before, won a first-round game, so they were a mid-major, but they were a high mid-major that was going to compete and that could make the tournament. And I knew I was going to get an opportunity to play and be developed. And that was the most important thing for myself and my dad. I remember I went on campus. That was the only visit I took.
Really?
And my dad kind of wanted me to take a couple other visits. That's why he was a little hesitant of me signing so quick. But I'll remember, you know, Kyle Johnson was my host. He took me to Forrest Gump. It was one of the best movies I've ever seen. So it was a real great lasting memory seeing that in the theater on campus on my recruiting visit. And I just fell in love with the place. And when I got home, I was shooting in the driveway. It was September 25th, right around there. You know, the early signing period had just kind of started. And I said, Dad, you know, I don't want to go anywhere else. I don't want to go see, you know, I was looking at Siena, Iowa, North Carolina State. I was going to go to Harvard. That was another one of my final five, really. And I just said, Miami just feels right. I just want to go there. And he's like, all right, if that's where your heart is, that's where you should go. And turns out I met my wife at orientation there, and my career took off there, and I couldn't have written a better script. So it all worked out perfectly going to Miami of Ohio.
At orientation, huh?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
And I should have mentioned earlier, if you have a question for Wally Szczerbiak, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a chance to volunteer that question. So start thinking about the things that you're wishing I was asking, and you, a handful of you will get that opportunity. So at Miami, it wasn't right away that you popped. And it was, again, another fantastic story of a young Wally Szczerbiak who, freshman and sophomore year, was really competing for minutes, competing for points. But then junior year, just the explosion, 24 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, and you really splashed onto the scene. There was a Sweet 16 appearance your senior year, another 24 points per game, 40 points in a game at one point in the tournament. What was it about sophomore year to junior year that felt so different for you?
Well, one of the big things was our team leader, Devin Davis. He graduated. So in college, you know, you have got, he was a Hall of Famer at Miami. He was a great player. He was a great teammate, and we made the NCAA tournament my sophomore year. You know, I was averaging 13 or 14 points, but he was the guy. So when he graduated, someone needs to kind of take that step and be the man in the program. And I worked my butt off that summer. Summers are where all you kids can get better. That's the time where I got better. You know, summer is the time to put in the work in the weight room, in the gym, to come back and show your coach that you want to be really, really, really good. And that's what I did in that summer. My body matured. I think I always had a lot of skill, especially coming out of high school. You know, I averaged 37 points a game in high school, but I was kind of skinny. I wasn't very athletic. I put the time in the weight room. I had a great strength and conditioning coach at Miami of Ohio, and he pushed us a lot in the weight room. So when I kind of combined the skill, which I had, with the strength, that's when my game just kind of blossomed and exploded, and that's where the 24 points a game in junior and senior year came from.
Do you think that the fact that it took 2 years helped you to really relish those years more than, yeah?
It's all about hard work,
yeah.
You know, and that taught me, in order to be, you know, the best you want to be at anything, any walk of life, you can't just loaf. You can't just coast. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the work. And the beauty about basketball for me, as a kid, as a pro, as a collegiate, it never felt like work.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in the weight room, it felt like fun because you were seeing results when you went out on the floor. When I was practicing my game and my individual instruction, when I was shooting hoops with my teammates and with my dad, it never felt like work. It just was always such a joy to have a basketball in my hand. And my dad always instilled that in me. He said, you know, play the game because you enjoy it. Don't play it because you have to. Don't play it because someone's making you play it. Play it because you love it. And that's why I did it, and I really, really enjoyed the game, and it's rewarded me for it.
It's neat because your game reflects that joy. I mean, I think back to the way that Wally Szczerbiak played both collegiately and professionally, and there was a genuine joy up and down the court for all of the franchises that you had the opportunity to play for. Because of all of your hard work, number 6 overall, 1999, the Minnesota Timberwolves spend that high draft capital on that kid from Spain who ended up in Long Island. I'm curious, again, before the social media era, What was the draft night like for you? Was there a hint for you? You weren't able to follow anyone on Twitter to find out where you were going.
That's true. I had a great agent that was really, and we had a good feel for our draft class. I knew a lot of the guys. Elton Brand went 1, Baron Davis 2, Lamar Odom was an AAU teammate of mine. He went I think 4 or 3 or 4, I forget. But so we were really close as a draft class, and I was just excited to go anywhere. And I knew I was probably going to go in the top 6 picks. That's kind of the only amount of teams I worked out for. But I had my friends from college, I had my family there, my brother, sister, my soon-to-be wife, fiance was there, and it's just it's an incredible moment for a basketball player to reach your dreams. That's when you reach your dreams.
Yeah.
Now I always used to tell myself, now it's time to fulfill my dreams and show that I really belong. Just getting drafted in the NBA doesn't guarantee anything. You want to be in the NBA, and for me, I had a 10-year career. I made an all-star team, and I couldn't have imagined it going better. So I'm very proud of that day, and that was kind of like the starting line for my career getting started.
Now, we all remember how electric your combination with Kevin Garnett was in Minnesota, but I have to ask, 22-year-old Wally Szczerbiak, first day in the pros, you show up in the locker room, and the most intense man you have ever met, Kevin Garnett, is sitting at his locker. What were those first interactions like, and how long did it take for that chemistry to develop?
It took a little bit of time.
Yeah.
As a rookie, Kevin and a lot of the vets, they're tough on rookies,
Yeah.
and that's how it is in all walks of life in the NBA. Rookies have to pay their dues, and we had to get donuts every day. And luckily, I had 3 rookies. I was sharing with Rasha Nesterovich and Will Avery. So I would take a week, then Will would take a week, then Rasha would take a week. So it wasn't every day. Like if you're the only rookie, that's a lot of donuts you got to buy. They had to be high-quality donuts, and KG liked his Krispy Kremes. So,
that was my next question. Thank you. Yeah.
he liked his Krispy Kremes, but. Listen, KG was a phenomenal mentor. He really was. He was a phenomenal teammate. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame in 2 years, and I'm thinking about possibly coming up to watch him get enshrined. And we had such great times. We had 7 wonderful years where we made the playoffs almost every single year. We made the Western Conference Finals. We did have a few ups and downs early on in our career, but that made us stronger. I think that made us closer. I think that made us better teammates, and we respected each other mutually after that, and after some of the bumps in the road that we had. But he's one of the greatest of all time. Got that ring with the Celtics, and it was an honor to play alongside him and be his wingman for a lot of those years in Minnesota.
Now, you mentioned the Celtics and his ring with the Celtics, but I will make the argument that you also had a lot to do with that ring for the Celtics.
There you go.
And I'm going to do that by talking about your first 2 trades. Mm-hmm. You were never traded in small packages.
Right.
The Wally Szczerbiak trades were always, they took up the sports section, right? Yeah. Your first one that sends you to Boston, I think 7 players and 2 draft picks, including you. What were some of, and you did not arrive at a great time in Boston. Mm-hmm. All of the Celtics jerseys out here now, you rewind the clock 15 years, and there aren't that many Celtics jerseys in our crowd.
No, I know.
So what was that like going from Minnesota, a place that was a young franchise, literally in its infancy, to the Boston Celtics, a team that was sort of on the ropes on its best day when you arrived?
Well, for me, kind of the course had run its course in Minnesota. I think Kevin McHale, all those first-round losses. We had the Sprewell-Cassell year where we made the Western Conference Finals, then we didn't make the playoffs the following year, and then the following year, midway through the season, is when I got traded. It was almost like it was time for me to try and try some new surroundings and see if the grass is greener, so to speak, on the other side, and ended up going to the Celtics.
I see what you did there.
No pun included. No pun intended, excuse me. But I was excited, playing for Danny Ainge. He was really excited to have me, playing alongside Paul Pierce. I was really excited for the next chapter in my career. Unfortunately, my knee was really kind of starting to give way. And, we found that out when I did my physical there with the Celtics. And we had to be careful with my knee, moving forward for the rest of my career. We had to kind of watch minutes. We had to watch practice time. And that's just, from the rigors of playing basketball since you're, this high. But, I put in the work to try to stay as healthy as I possibly could. I got injured a few times in Boston. Paul Pierce was injured, so it was some tough times. We had a really young team. I love playing for Doc Rivers. He's still probably, my favorite coach maybe to play for. He was a phenomenal guy, and he did a phenomenal job wherever he's been. He's just first class all along, not only a coach, as a person, as a golfer. I love playing golf with him off the court. He was a great guy. But I just had great times in Boston. And then, like you mentioned, I ended up getting traded after my second year there for Ray Allen, and the rest is history. I helped, orchestrate that team that won a championship. So I'm sure Celtic fans remember that, and they're pretty happy about that.
Now, here's the part that I told you about. I only have 3 questions left for Wally Szczerbiak. So after this question, I'll ask for volunteers, and the great Hoop Hall staffers will select a handful of you, put you in a line to our right, your left, and you will have that opportunity. Now, you're again traded, this time to, after you go from Boston to Seattle, then Seattle to Cleveland. And instead of going through all of the different franchises, I'm curious, in 10 years, 4 franchises in very different sections of the country, very different fan bases. Was there one stop that you had wished lasted a little bit longer?
I would have to say probably Cleveland.
Yeah.
We were so good.
Yeah.
Playing alongside LeBron James. When I got traded midway through the season, we won the first round playoff series against Washington, and then we lost in 7 against the Celtics. And, it was just a back and forth. We held serve at our home court. I was guarding Ray Allen in that whole entire series. That was that was just a really, and that was the year they won the title. So it was kind of like, 6 degrees. Here I got traded to Seattle for Ray Allen, but then Cleveland went and got me midway through the next season, and that's the season that Boston won the title. And we were down 4 points with 50 seconds left in Game 7, and we had the opportunity to beat the Celtics. So it was kind of mixed emotions really all over the place for me. So and then the following year in Cleveland, we won 66 games. We were the best team in the league. We were favorites to win the title, and we got upset in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Orlando Magic, which was my last games as an NBA player, because my knee gave out in that series. So I've never touched an NBA floor after that. So for me, I wish that Cleveland stint would have lasted a little bit longer. I felt like it was cut a little bit short, but it was a memorable time, along with every single place I played. Everywhere I played, Minnesota, Boston. I loved Seattle. I think they need a team back there. I really think the fans are phenomenal. I played with Kevin Durant his rookie year before they went to Oklahoma City. I love that place. So the fans were great to me in every city I went to, and I wouldn't have done it any other way.
I love hearing that. Do you have a question for Wally Szczerbiak? Raise your hand right now. One of the great Hoop Hall staffers will come around and recognize you, and I promise I won't hog the fun for much longer. So, since hanging up the high tops, you've played an incredible role in the media. You've had a chance to become I think one of the best team-based analysts. Your work with the New York Knicks it really reflects, I think, the team. The fun young team that they have. Can you talk about your transition from the court to in front of the camera, and maybe some of the bumps along the way?
Well, during my career, I was always comfortable with interviews, comfortable speaking in front of the camera. With reps, you get comfortable, you get confident. You don't get as nervous in front of the camera. So my agent, rest in peace, Gary Wishard, right when I retired, he said, "Wally, you got to go into media. It's perfect for you. You're going to be great at it." And he didn't let me rest. He said, "You got to strike while the iron's hot. You just retired. Your name's out there. We got to get you going right away. You can't take any time off." So I got a job with CBS Sports, CBS Sports Network, and they are just a phenomenal company to work with. I love doing college basketball. I've been working with them now since 2010, so 8 years. And through MSG kind of seeing me on CBS, there came an opening with the Knicks, and the Knicks were my childhood team. I grew up a Knicks fan on Long Island. Always loved the Patrick Ewing, Pat Riley teams, that were hard-nosed and gritty, and I always cheered for the Knicks. So to get that job was just a dream job for me. And now I get to go to Madison Square Garden to every game. I get to watch, I get to analyze. I watch the road games with a great partner with Al Troutwig and another guy, Alan Hahn and Bill Pito, and it's just like, it's incredible. It's like sitting on your couch watching the Knicks with your best friends, and then you get to go talk about it. So, the transition was really easy. There weren't many bumps in the road. I got a few kind of directional hints and tips from some of my producers. Tyler Hale is a guy who's really helped me out. If he sees something, he would always tell me, sit up straight, kind of project your voice, look like you're excited and enjoying what you're doing. And I try to come across doing that out there on the, when I'm on camera. So it's been a great transition for me to keep me in the game, since I can't play basketball anymore physically because I can't run and my knee and hip are so bad. But to be able to analyze and watch, I love what I'm doing.
All right, I'm going to pretend this is my opinion. You give me our opinion. How do the Knicks look this year?
It's gonna be a tough one. It really is. But I like what they're doing. They're doing what needs to be done. They're getting younger. Kristaps Porzingis being hurt obviously is going to be tough. But Kevin Knox looks great. Robinson looks great. They're 2 draft picks I think they hit home runs with from what I saw in the summer league. And it's just going to be a team you can get behind.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to win a lot of games. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. Obviously, every player, when they go into the season, you believe you're going to make the playoffs. And I know everyone in that locker room does. But it's going to be a tall task. But this is a year to build a framework under Coach Fizdale, who I think is a tremendous coach, to really, really get the Garden rocking again, because it's been too long since it's been rocking. And when the Garden is rocking and when New York hoops is rolling, it's nothing like it. And I think they're on their way with what they're building with a strong foundation.
They certainly made the right selection with Fizz. I think Fizz is that dude,
I
for
agree.
sure.
I totally agree.
My last question, Wally. You've said it a little bit, but I'm curious if you could really, with all of your accomplishments, this moment as we sit here right now, can you contextualize this in terms of your accomplishments, sitting here on center court in the Hall of Fame, talking to so many kids who want to be sitting where you are? What is this like for Wally Szczerbiak?
I just want to thank you for having me. I mean, I just to come here and just get chills up and down your spine walking through the hallways of this incredible place. And like I said earlier, what the game of basketball has done for me, what it's given me. I have 5 kids who I coach, who I love sharing the game with. It's done so much for me in my life. I don't know where I would be without it. So to come back here and to be appreciated by these wonderful fans, and believe me, I appreciate everyone coming out to support me and hear my story and hear this interview. It's a wonderful day. I've been having some tough times, so it's something I really needed. I feel really good right now, and I just want to thank everyone for coming out, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Wally Szczerbiak. All right, Wally. Just between you and me, no one can hear us. These are the hard questions.
Okay, I like
so
it.
I'm just going to warn you right now. The fastballs are coming.
Bring it.
So let's bring on some questions from the audience. I only have two requests. One, that you allow me to continue to hold the microphone. And the second is that you introduce yourself to Wally before you ask.
Hi, I'm Bill Nowak from Ludlow. I was a freshman at GW when your dad was a senior.
Wow.
So I saw him play a few games.
Okay.
Although I wish I had seen more in retrospect. We did break a lot of Colonial hearts by, I guess you didn't even consider GW in the long run, but you went to Miami. But my question with GW and UMass, both in Atlantic 10, what's your assessment of the league? Are they trending up or down right now?
Well, we love, CBS Sports Network, we love covering the Atlantic 10. It is one of those very unheralded leagues, and they had a phenomenal year a few years back. I think it was 2 or 3 years back where they had 4 or 5 teams in the NCAA tournament. And unfortunately, with if you don't play well in the non-conference, they haven't had that same type of cachet in the tournament, so to speak, the last few years. Rhode Island has been the team that's really been carrying the torch. They've been tremendous the last couple of years. Now with Coach Hurley moving on to UConn, it's going to be interesting to see how they can kind of revive that conference, because it's a very competitive conference. I love watching those coaches. There are some tremendous coaches in that conference, and they can compete with any teams in the league, in the country, excuse me. So. And as far as me going there, Coach Jarvis was there, and my dad had to pick up the phone and ask him, do you want Wally?
Really?
And Coach Jarvis, he said, yeah, we kind of want Wally, but yeah, we're kind of lukewarm on Wally. We kind of want another guy. So my dad was like, all right. I tried and ended up at Miami of Ohio, which all ended up well, but we definitely tried because it would have been nice to don a Colonial uniform like my dad.
Well, we would have loved you there.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Wonder what that other guy ever did. He played 10 years in the NBA?
How you doing? Bobby Anastasia from Manhasset, Long Island.
There you go. Okay. How you doing,
Wally
Bobby?
from our St. Mary's Summer League.
Yes.
And I had a couple of questions, but I'll start with this for Wally being a college basketball analyst. A good friend of ours, Tim Cluse at Iona.
Sure.
He talks to me all the time about kids today and how he thinks too much time is spent. And you being a father of 5 now, I'm sure you're getting into this with AAU as opposed to getting in the parks and playing against maybe older,
Right.
more experienced players. Being a young kid, getting your butt kicked a little bit.
Sure.
How do you feel about Timmy and his quote on that?
I agree, and that's how I got better. I played against Timmy. I played against my dad. I played in the Saturday run, down in Freeport, and watched those guys play.
Post.
Watch the back doors, watch the shots, and that they didn't miss. Watch the handoffs, and that's how I learned the game. AAU is good because at least kids have a ball in their hand. It's up to the coaches, though, to make sure they're teaching the kids in the right way. Any way you can get kids nowadays, not playing on their phones, not playing on their video games, not playing on their computers, and out running around, socializing, being part of a team, I think that's great. So AAU is great for that, but at the same time, they have to get the right direction when they're out there. And that's what I think Coach Cluse is referring to. Got to get these kids the right direction, because if you can combine the time that you have a ball in your hand through AAU basketball, and then if you can combine getting the right direction with that ball in your hand, that's why we can have some star players. And I think, the NBA is benefiting because there are some kids that are coming up, the youngsters that are pretty darn good.
And a question on Coach Cluse real quick. He's
Sure.
had great successes, at St. Mary's with Danny
Sure.
Green and the rest of the guys. Moving on to Iona, he's had great success in the MAC. What do you think, because I have my own ideas on this, holds him back from getting to the next level of coaching?
Well, I don't know. If I was a player, I would want to go play for him, because the way he coaches, the style he plays, that is how every player should want to play. And the NBA is starting to pick up on it. They're starting to play faster. They're starting to shoot threes. They're starting to score points. He's done a great job up there. He really has. I know there was an issue with his buyout, and that's one of the reasons why he didn't move and go somewhere else. But if I'm a top-notch school, a top 25 school in college basketball, I would be ringing his phone off the hook, because the way he coaches, he's got a great background. You mentioned St. Mary's, coaching Danny Green, coaching a true pro. I think he would be great wherever he ended up.
Great. Thank you, Wally. Last thing.
Got
I'd be
it.
remiss if I didn't say Marty Groverman said to say hello.
I love his book, too. Basketball is in my blood. I just finished it.
This is great. How about a little Iona Gales talk? That's fantastic.
No, I know.
How are you, sir?
Hi, how are you? Thank you. Bill Gorman from Lincoln University. How you doing?
How you doing?
Good. You mentioned about your dad playing for the ABA. What's the best story he told you about the ABA versus the NBA or playing with Pittsburgh?
I'm trying to think. I think he was teammates with Connie Hawkins. So I think he's told me a lot of stories about in practice having to go at him, having to guard him, having to try to stop him. And he was a rookie in that year, and he didn't get that many opportunities to play. But I looked up his statistics, and he shot some crazy percentage. He was up around like 60% from the field, and he told me what he tried to do, and especially in the ABA and as a rookie, was just to try to outwork everyone on the floor when he was on the floor. He would be the hardest runner. He would be the first one down on each end of the floor each time. He would try to get every loose ball, every loose rebound, because he had stars on his team like Connie Hawkins. So when he was on the floor, he had to figure out a way to make himself useful. And that's what I'll remember about his stories of being a rookie when he was with the Pittsburgh Condors.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, bud. Come on over.
My name's Armand. I'm from California, San Francisco. Who is the hardest player you've had to guard in the NBA?
That's a really good question. And I've always answered it the same. It's Paul Pierce. It really is. He was right around my generation. I had to guard guys like LeBron James, like Kobe Bryant, but Paul Pierce just had my number. And it was cool when I told him this when we were teammates too with the Celtics. He was one of those guys where he was too tall, where he could post me up a little bit. He was a little bit quicker than me, so it was tough to stay in front of him. And he was maybe one of the smartest players I ever had to guard. I mean, he had a bag of tricks that I just could not figure out. And he would just go into those bag of tricks. He would get little, lob layups and backdoor layups and, seal me off for these plays. And I just couldn't figure out how to slow him down and how to guard him. The way he changed speeds, his deception on the basketball court was very, very tough as a defender to handle. So for me, he was the toughest. Great question, by the way. Great
Thank
question.
you.
Thanks, bud. Also speaks to the power of a sweaty headband. No one
you
wants
go.
to be near a sweaty headband.
There you go.
I'm Ryan Bain from Foxborough. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on super teams like Golden State.
Well, it's the new wave of the NBA, and if I was a player in the NBA, I would take the challenge to try to beat those teams. I know for some fans, it's tough to see teams just dominating, and maybe it's not good for the league. But as a competitor, I used to be that guy that always rooted against Michael Jordan. I rooted against Tiger Woods in his prime because I was that guy that always wanted to take the best down. And as a player, that should be the motivation of all these teams in the league. They are a super team. They have 4 or 5 Hall of Famers on their team. They're winning multiple titles. But that's got to motivate you every day in the offseason to get better as a player and as a team and as an organization, because it'll be that much sweeter if you do beat them, if you knock them off their pedestal.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Great question. And we'll bring in the closer here, the fresh arm, to finish out the 9th inning.
I'm good. I'm Maddie. I'm from Virginia Beach. And so Golden State just signed Boogie Cousins, and he's coming off an Achilles injury. How hard is it to recover from major injuries like that?
I had to do it many a times. I got a scar up to here on my ankle from an ankle surgery. I had 3 knee surgeries on this left knee. So it's not easy. And you learn from each injury you have how hard you have to work in order to rehab. Now, Boogie's lucky because technology has come a long way, even since when I played. That injury to your Achilles could end some careers, especially a guy his size. But nowadays, I think he's absolutely going to be fine. I think he's going to be back midway through the season. I have a lot of respect for what he did, signing for the amount of money he did and going to Golden State, because he really wants to get that ring, because I'm sure he had an opportunity to sign a big long-term contract. So it's a little bit of a risk on his part, but he's going to have to work his butt off to get back to the level he was playing at, because he was playing at a high level before he had that injury. And that's just a part of sports. My dad always taught me, he said, be grateful of every single day you're on that court, because injuries happen. And if you get injured, it can go like that. That's why my dad always told me, make sure you get in school, and make sure you do your work in the workroom, and make sure you do your homework. Make sure you get good grades, because you never know when the game of basketball can get taken from you. And Boogie Cousins is going through that right now, but I'm sure he's working hard to be motivated and get back.
Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent questions. They brought it.
Tremendous. Tremendous.
Ladies and gentlemen, one last round of applause of thanks to Wally Szczerbiak.